Welcome back
to Realty Check.
I'm Michelle Morris.
I'm Carly Fridman.
And today we're talking about all things first-time home buyers and first-time home sellers. We're going to be taking your questions from Instagram and answering them today.
So listen to us chat along.
So we're going to start with questions from first-time home buyers. Some of these, or all of these.
We got a lot of questions, actually. Some of them were better than others, but they're good.
So they were sent in by you guys, which is nice. Thank you very much. So I'm going to start with first-time home buyers. We're also going to do first-time home sellers because they're usually like left to the wind. So first,
and it's crazy the age difference. Like a first-time home buyer is young, and a first-time home seller, like now, is like can be in their 70s or 80s. People move way more now than they used to in our parents'
But then again, I find that first-time home buyers, it's like if they had bought 32 years ago, they become a first-time home buyer again. Like I'm repeating the same thing to them as I repeat to my...
But the process is also completely different.
Yeah, exactly. So it could affect someone that bought 32 years ago, and it's, like you said, a completely different process. So first question, can you lay out all the expenses and fees that go along with purchasing a property, down payment, notary, welcome taxes?
Okay. Well, as you know, the concept of a down payment has drastically changed since a lot of these people, like our baby boomer clients are selling. So now you can put 5% down. Anything under 20% cash down, so the money you have physically in your bank account, is called an insured mortgage. And there's an additional interest rate and fee that you pay on top of it. But you can get qualified, depending on your income, et cetera, to buy a property with less cash down. The reason why that's super interesting for a lot of people, and obviously we can get into this in a different time because today is not the day, but with the home buyers program where you can use your RRSPs and you can pull for them to use them as a down payment, for a lot of people, maxing out the home buyers plan, both parties, is equivalent to 5% of your first time. So you don't have to come up with additional cash, which is kind of great for people that don't necessarily have massive cash flow. And we know that in today's world, it's really hard to put money aside. Like inflation, everything costs more. Not many people have $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 cash lying around to make their first purchase. And that seems like it's a lot of money, but keep in mind, 20% of $400,000 is $80,000. Who has $80,000 in cash at 20 something years old? Because you're assuming a first time home buyer is quite young. So they don't have that money. And a lot of places will match your RRSP contribution. A lot of companies, or they did. So you can get that maximum RRSP contribution much faster and be able to help you do it. So your first thing is that's your down payment, and that's a sliding scale. And it doesn't have to be a round number. Obviously, round numbers are better, but you don't have to have a down payment that's a round number.
One thing I want to mention about that down payment, that a client of mine recently, your down payment, those funds have to be in your account for 90 days.
They do. They have to be out of an investment and in the country for 90 days.
Yes. So you can't say, oh, my parent or someone is giving me this money. It has to be in the account for 90 days. So I've seen someone actually get stuck and they won't be able to disperse the funds. So that's super important. You have to have your funds in order. Don't leave it to the last minute in your account, in your name for 90 days.
And your mortgage broker should be able to tell you that if that's the case, depending on where it is. When I say the cash has to be in an account and in the country, I'm saying that, like, let's say your parents live abroad, or have investments abroad, or your grandparents are giving you money, then your money is coming from outside the country. Because right now, as we all know, there's a ban on foreign investment. Whether it's for your personal or not, you have to be a Canadian resident for tax purposes to be able to purchase a property, unless you fall under the certain exceptions. So that's really important that you know where your money's coming from and that it's in your account and then with the notary. So that's your first, that's your major expense, right? Like nothing's going to be more when you're buying a house than your down payment. No. I would hope not, because otherwise we're in big trouble. I usually tell people, like, a fair rule of thumb is to have at least 5% of what the property costs in a savings account above and beyond of your down payment, to not only cover your closing costs, but also to cover anything that's unexpected, because you never know what's going to happen. In a condo, there could be a special assessment. There could be works that have to be done. In a house, there's everything from your foundation to your roof to
Which is your sole responsibility.
And it's your sole responsibility. And you, even if you have the best inspector on the planet, your house can be fine on a Tuesday, and on Wednesday something can happen. You just never really know. You put all the good chances on your side, but you need that 5%. Usually I say 5% buffer for that.
So you have your cash down.
Yep.
You have, even right after you write your offer, you have your...
So let's go in chronological order. So then you have
your inspection.
Correct. And so
we highly suggest you inspect any property.
For sure. And inspections do drastically different costs. And they're also like, it's not a place you want to try to save and cut corners.
No.
Like, oh, I have an inspector that's going to charge $500 for this $1 million house. Like, no, thank you. Like, be smart. But a condo inspection is generally not that expensive.
Can start at $500 for a
it could for like a 400 square
inspection.
foot, because they're only doing your private portion. Private portion means from your front door inside. They're not doing the common areas. They're not doing your garage spot. They're not doing anything else, because all those other things, unless your garage spot is cadastered, and even that it's exaggerated because you probably have like 0.0003% of the garage. The rest falls under reading your documents and contributing to the fund of the building, the reserve fund. So you have them inspect that. A home inspection can drastically differ in price. I have some home inspections that have cost $900. I have some home inspections which have cost $2,000. It really depends on where the house is, if it's connected to the city municipal water system, if it has its own well, if it has its own septic, where it is, how big it is. And inspectors don't say, okay, your house is $1 million, so I'm going to charge you more. It's based on square footage, size, and risk. So,
and anything that they have to do. So if they're doing a scope test, for example, if you have
that's
to do
just
these
adding
tests, then you're adding to...
For sure. And then so on top of your inspection, you then have your specialist reports that might come up that you might need. So you might need a report for contamination, asbestos. You might need
a structural engineer.
Correct.
Or
a lot of places will give you a free report for like French drains and stuff like that, a roofer. But just expect that you're going to have other kind of expenses that are going to come along with it that you're going to have to look into.
So inspection, $500 to $2,000,
depending on what it is.
Next, obviously, you have to start saving for your down payment and all this.
You should have already done that. Please don't
start moving your money around.
Please don't write an offer when you have less than 5% and you're only putting down 5%.
Don't lie to us.
Well, also, by the way, just so you know, the bank
won't accept
it. And also, we write the offer based on how much cash down you are putting. So technically, if you decide to you write an offer 20% cash down, you get approved at 20% cash down, but then you decide to only put 5% cash down, I have to modify your offer. But if you decide to put 5% cash down, but then you come into some money, I still technically should modify your promise to purchase, but it's not as much of a risk, because if the bank's willing to give it to you at 5, they're probably willing to give it at 10,
happy to give
or
it
maybe
to you.
20. But what will change is an evaluation or not. The more property more percentage of your property the bank owns, the less likely you're to get an evaluation, because they don't have their risk is the same whether they own 95% or they own 80%, but they have a smaller partner. So that's kind of how it's very general of how they would look at it. Then your next big expense is your movers.
Notary.
Your movers.
Yeah.
Don't move yourself. Get movers. Do the most you can yourself, but get movers. You're going to always regret if you have the option to rent a truck and
for sure.
Get your friends to do it. It's going to end up costing you close to the same amount, depending on the time of year, to rent a truck, use it, move it, all that, and the stress than it is to have movers. Yeah. I'm not talking about the first-time home buyer who has no furniture, is going to buy the furniture anyways, or is moving out of their small rental apartment. And I'm talking, if you're doing a major move, don't cut corners there. You're going to regret it. It's going to be stressful. So, maximize your time somewhere else if you can. Make the boxes. Mm-hmm. Just boxes alone are expensive. And a lot of moving companies now, and we've posted this before, not only on our social media, but we've done it in some of our newsletters. There are ways to be more conscious in terms of the environment by using reusable boxes.
I have the best tip for that. When I moved, I knew I was moving. a year prior. So we had bought very, very early. So any of my good food boxes, anything that I was buying things, right? So I was emptying everything and I would keep all my boxes. Yep. And then I just felt I didn't spend a penny on buying boxes. But
also, really, like the reusable boxes are the best thing. And sometimes they'll end up being close to the same cost of buying boxes from Home Depot if you have to do that. Yeah. That, and every time you go into an SAQ, grab a box. Yeah. Because then you just accumulate them. Yeah. I know we're going back to the cost, but the other thing that's really, really smart is build an Excel spreadsheet by numbering your boxes and writing on the box or writing in your Excel spreadsheet what is in all your boxes. Because to Michelle's point, and we'll come back to it when we talk about first-time sellers or sellers in general, you are going to move no matter what. So start packing up your house on day one. A year before is a little exaggerated, but like start packing from the time that you sign the brokerage contract or right before. Then you won't be in a panic. Then you might not need to buy boxes and do this and do that. And the other thing is too, you're decluttering for us. Yeah. So start packing up your boxes and start getting ready to go. So that's not the worst thing.
And to Carly's point, to number your boxes, what I also did is on my boxes, I wrote what room it belonged in, because if I wasn't present for the movers unloading, they just had to look and they just had to plop in the middle of the room that box.
And by the way, I said hire movers. It comes from personal experience. When I moved into my place, my newest place, I did not hire movers because I had no furniture. Yeah. I had ordered all new furniture for our house. I had like 2 or 3 pieces. I had not hired movers, all new furniture for our house. And I had the luxury, which most people don't have, that you had too, is I had the luxury that I could move 10 boxes at a time, fill up my truck, go. And I did it over weeks at a time. But most people have to do it in
a few days.
And a few days or a few hours. Yeah. So you don't have that time. You either take off work, which is going to cost you more than hiring movers. It's kind of like you gotta look at what's more cost efficient. Makes more sense. And buying a property is very stressful and very exciting. So you want to be able to focus your energy on that, not necessarily the moving. Okay, so another expense that you're going to have after the movers, because if that's what you choose to do, is your notary. And I actually had this experience this week with clients, which they had told me that they were going with this notary firm, and I had to email the notary firm the offer, just at info, blah, 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 notary. And I said, I don't like that. There's no notary assigned to you. And they said, no, but they're going to charge us $1,500. And I was like,
they were just
emailing an info.
The notary blah, blah, was going to be assigned by this person.
So I didn't have control on who the notary was. The notary is your gatekeeper. They are the last person to cross your T's and dot your I's. You don't want to skimp on this person. I would almost say that it is more dangerous to skimp on a notary than it is on a home inspector. A notary is the one who's going to make sure that the title, your home, is properly done and it's yours and you will not have any mistakes. That is the most important thing. They review your certificate of location with you. They review, if you're living in a condo, all of the rules and regulations of the building. They make sure there's no special assessments, that us as brokers haven't missed anything that's vital to your ownership.
They're the final filter.
So, and this is specific for Quebec, and it's so different from other places. So I don't think it's a place to skimp. Anyway, so these clients tell me $1,500, okay? As a broker, you have trusted sources and people you work with. I've been doing this long enough. I have about 10, 15 notaries that I go to, depending on the fit with the client, the price of the property, the type of property, the location, the area. There are some notaries that specialize in heritage buildings like Old Montreal. There's others that don't.
Undivided.
And that's a whole other thing. Yeah. So I got like that ick. I was like, something doesn't seem right. So I emailed a notary that we work with often, who I really like, and she's not the most expensive. She's probably on the mid-range. And I said to her, hey, my clients got quoted $1,500 for their transaction. It's a country house. This is the value. It's a mortgage with this bank, because each bank has sometimes a different cost to the registration of the mortgage, and that's lumped into what they're charging you. So I asked her, and she's like, that seems really cheap. And I said, yeah, I'm a little concerned that it's so cheap. She said, I can do it for $1,750, which is not a huge difference. No. And she said, by the way, and I'm not really available because it's the end of this month, next month. I said, okay. She's like, but I'll make an exception if I have to, blah, blah, blah. They get back to me and they say, oh, well, now we're going with this notary. And I was like, okay, great. I know that notary, and I know that they are on the cheaper side. They do volume business, but it's a good notary, and I felt a lot more comfortable. One of the other things that she had said to me, this notary, she said, just protect yourself, put it in an email that you are uncomfortable with it, and that's it. She goes, after that, you can't really do much more.
No, if they want to be represented.
If a notary is not on the ball, they can delay your transaction, which can be costly to you and can be an issue, and you can have problems. And like, it's okay if it's your secondary home. It's okay if you're not in a rush to move, but if you have to be out of your house on the Tuesday and you need your funds on the previous Wednesday, if your notary doesn't close on time, the whole domino effect can go wrong. So you really need to be with someone you trust or that you've worked with before, and that comes with a recommendation, not just someone that you've Googled and they're inexpensive. Like, there's some notaries that will charge you as a buyer very little, but take it up on the other side. And that I think isn't great. It's not nice because the seller is told that they're not responsible for certain fees. And why should and it's happened, with a couple notaries that the seller ended up paying like $1,900 and the buyer ended up paying $12,000. And you're like, why? And often that seller doesn't even have a mortgage. So you're kind of like weirded out.
We'll round back to that afterwards.
Yeah, we'll definitely go back to that.
The last fee, I think, not that people forget, but first-time home buyers, maybe they won't think about, is the welcome tax.
Oh, and the taxes.
And taxes. So taxes in general, obviously, you start paying as of day one. So what happens is, let's say so I buy a house from Carly. Municipal taxes goes from January 1st to December 31st. I buy a house from Carly on October 3rd, okay? She's already paid her 2 payments, okay? They've already happened in the year. So now I am responsible for basically October minus 2 days, November, December. So at the notary is going to adjust, and I have to scratch Carly a check of X $100 to cover those fees because she's already paid for them.
But wait, if it's at that time of year, then you're not thinking to yourself, oh my God, I've got it in January, then scratch up more cash. So that's where my put at least 5% of your value
because the
away.
Fees are going to start coming in.
Because no one's like, oh, you just bought a property? We're so sorry. You don't have to pay hydro. You don't have to pay taxes. And your welcome tax is a sliding scale. That's the big chunk that you get screwed on. So like, you have to know that your welcome tax, the notary should be able to give you an idea of what it's going to be.
We can give you an idea, and the notary will be able to, it'll be stated in your deed of sale.
But it can be flexible.
But it could be flexed, yeah.
And the other thing that we're going to see more and more of that we haven't seen for the last, 5 to 7 years is, so there's this whole thing, if you know, that everybody's been complaining that their taxes went up. Their municipal taxes went through the roof. All these municipalities were like, ha, 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 multiple offers, ha, 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 value's gone high. So we're going to try to get some money too, because your municipal taxes that you pay obviously go back into the city, and the city gets to maintain the city and blah, 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 the workers, whatever they need to do. So a lot of people's municipal evaluation went up so significantly that it's more expensive than what I can sell their house for today. So you need to know that it's on the higher of the two. Not the price you pay. It's the price you pay or the municipal evaluation. Whichever one is bigger.
Convenient. Is
convenient for the city, literally, is what you're going to pay your taxes, your municipal taxes on. So, municipal taxes, your welcome taxes tax. So, for example, I just did a sale in Westmount, and we sold the house for let's call it 1.4, but the house is evaluated at $2,100,000. So their welcome tax is based on $2,100,000, and because it's a luxury home, their welcome tax is not just the 1%, right, or the 1.5. Their welcome tax ended up being almost $40,000. And if you're not expecting that, well, there goes your renovation budget. There goes your couch. There goes your new appliances. There goes a lot of things. So prepare for that. And I would say that the other thing that people need to know is the appliances that are included in a sale are included in working order on the day that you sign the deed of sale. Meaning you walk in on Monday, you get your house, you have this beautiful Bertazzoni fridge, or this beautiful Bloomberg fridge, or this LG fridge, and you're so excited, and then 3 weeks later, whoop, the fridge starts working. Well, warranty on appliances is short, and you can't go back to your seller and say, ooh, it doesn't work. Well, it worked on day one. You know it worked on day one. So you're really like SHIT out of luck, and you're stuck. So you got to keep money for those kinds of things.
Just to recap.
Yeah.
You have, as a first-time home buyer, you have your inspection.
You have your down payment.
Your down payment, that comes
Your down
first.
payment,
Your
don't
down
forget.
payment, 5 to 20%.
Yep.
Your inspection, 500 to 2,000.
Yep.
Then you have your inspection, notary.
Yeah. Your moving, we'll call them moving costs.
Moving costs, 1,000 plus.
Yeah.
Your notary, which can range anywhere from 1,500.
Let's call it 1,500 all the way up to 2,500 or more, depending on what you have.
And then finally is going to be your welcome tax.
Yeah.
Which is a percentage, like Carly said, it's a sliding scale.
Yeah. And the last thing I would say is, and this falls more under the new construction, if you're buying new construction, put $1,000 plus on the side because you're going to need blinds.
Yeah.
Your things, they don't come with blinds.
No,
And by the way,
blinds,
often
light fixtures.
Light fixtures, blinds, and mirrors. Do not assume that light fixtures, blinds, and mirrors are included.
Toilet paper holder, the paper towel, all those things. Question number 2. How do I know if I'm making a good purchase?
Oh, this is a really easy question because it's not a question. I laughed when I saw this. That's different from anybody. Like I cannot tell you if you're making a good purchase or a bad purchase. What I can tell you as a broker is if the property has a thorn, if there's something wrong with the property, I can tell you that. If you're overpaying for a property based on your comparables, I can tell you that.
But if you still say, I'm going forward,
for sure,
then we're there to support you.
For sure. I can also tell you that, you're buying a 2-bedroom condo and your bedrooms are in the basement and you're buying it with no parking and everybody else in the building has parking and you're putting yourself at a disadvantage. How you're going to know whether a property is a good purchase or not for you is a you decision. Can you afford it? Is it in the area you wanted? Is it going to complement your lifestyle? Is it going to complement you? Other than that, I can't help you. I can tell you that if you're buying a condo next to the REM and the first thing you said to me on my first meeting, and we've talked about this so many times that that's what you have to do is have a first meeting with the buyer to understand them. And you say, you know what, Carly, I'm super noise sensitive and I can't sleep and even a humming of a fridge wakes me up. Well, don't buy next to the REM. Like, duh. If you're someone who has really bad SAD, seasonal affective disorder, don't buy a condo in a basement. You need the sunlight. But I'm not going to be able to tell you those things if you don't tell me those things. So as long as you're transparent and honest with us about your needs, we'll never lead you in a direction that's wrong. And to Michelle's point, if you're doing something that we don't agree with, we'll always put it in writing to protect ourselves and to make it clear to you that we don't think it's a good investment. But other than that, no one's going to tell you that you're making the right decision. And truthfully and honestly, and this is going to sound really frivolous, it's not permanent. If you are unhappy in your house that you bought, a market changes. It's cyclical. So stay in it and you can sell. Like in this market, if you make a decision and you don't like the property you buy and in 6 months from now you're unhappy, chances are in a year and a half from now I'll be able to sell it at a profit. If you bought in the last 2 years and you don't like your house, chances are probably not going to sell it in a profit. But then you haven't paid rent. So calculate it out. Be like, you know what? Yeah. I haven't paid rent. I'm not happy. Even. I'll sell it. I'll take a loss and move on. It sounds easier than it is, but the worst feeling in the world is when your home jails you. So if you're not happy, there's always a way out. If you have the liquidity, rent it. We'll rent it out for you. We'll find you something else.
We'll find you something to rent in the meantime.
It's not forever. So don't let it crush you and don't let the fear of making the wrong decision keep you from getting in the market. Because the longer it takes you to get in the market, the least far your money is going to go over time.
Question number 3, where do I look for properties? Someone coming from out of town maybe doesn't know. But
I think a lot of people don't know.
No. So basically what we're going to refer you to is anything on Centris, the MLS.
So Centris is MLS, Realtor.ca. It's all called Centris.ca, and it pulls from every website. So unless it's a private listing, so it's an off-market listing or it's an exclusive listing, those are words you hear come around, or it's a new construction that's selling very well, it's all on Centris. Everything is on Centris. And nor Michelle or myself set people up on automatic mailers unless they ask us to. We filter all the properties we send to you. So I always tell my clients, encourage them to go on Centris at the same time as me and send me things that I might not think they'll like. But keep in mind also, brokers see more information about a property than the public. So don't ever hesitate to say, hey, Carly, I think I really like this house in Lachine.
What do you think?
What do you think? Or it's been sitting for a long time. Why? Or it seems underpriced. Why? Or you know, especially in the market we're in, it's a little bit above my budget, but, you know, 2 years ago, I couldn't, if you said to me it's a little bit of my budget, I'd say, well, it's going to be a lot over your budget. In this market, there's a little bit more wiggle room for buyers. It's anything you've heard in the last few years about buying, scratch it out of your mind. You're in a different market. It's nicer to be a buyer in terms of the process, maybe not financially, but it's nicer to be a buyer in terms of the process, and you have time. You have the luxury of time now.
Question number 4. What's one thing people forget to take into consideration during the first-time buying process?
I think we already touched on it, putting money aside.
Yeah, putting money aside.
Yeah. And the delay. I think that's another thing that people don't realize. I think that people don't realize the timeline that it takes to buy a property. So often I'll have people who either think the process is very long or think it can move really fast. So it's the fastest I can move with a mortgage from the day that you make an offer to the day that I close your property, i.e. you get the keys. I would say a fair barometer for that is 45 days minimum. I can do it probably slightly less, probably slightly more, but I think 45 days is good. If you're a cash buyer, from the day you make an offer, if you have no conditions,
10,
I could probably
15.
do it 15 days.
It's going to be the notary that's going to hold us up. It's not going to be us.
Depending on the time of year. And it's much faster to buy, I'm telling you right now, it is much faster to buy a house in cash than a condo in cash. Because a condo, you still need to deal with the association and get information. When you're buying a house, you really don't have much to do. That is provided, however, that the listing broker and the seller are organized. If they don't have a new certificate of location or anything is not in line, I can't do it that fast. But that doesn't mean it has to be that fast. There's also the option that you buy a house and you get an accepted offer and then you don't move for 6 months. So both are options. But it doesn't, the process from the day that you make an offer to the day that it's firm is usually max of 14 days. I don't understand every time I get an offer with 21 days for financing or 21 days for inspection, I want to puke. You don't need that much time. You should be, if you're doing this, you should be organized. Get your ducks in a row before you put the seller in a position that they have to work with you.
We're going to move on to first-time home sellers. So this is a touchy subject, but it is interesting. What is the standard commission?
So there's no such thing as standard commission. I think that's what people need to understand.
And what's deceiving is the people that have signs commission 1%.
Yeah.
But there's fine print in that because keep in mind there's most likely two parties. There's a buying broker and a selling broker. So you're 1%. It's not actually 1%.
I also think you get what you pay for. The going rate for commission is anywhere between, I would say 3 and 6% is a standard. That's not always split equally between buyer's broker and seller's broker. And I think that as a first-time home seller, read the fine print on your contract because you need to know what the person who is potentially bringing you or in this new market is bringing you, the client, is getting paid versus your own broker. And I think
that's going to count into your profits, right? So you need to make that calculation at the very beginning.
Yeah.
So that we know how flexible you are with negotiations, etc.
And one of my biggest pet peeves is to be negotiated off the bat. Like, let me do my job and let me show you that I'm good at my job, right? If I ask you for 5% commission, which is very standard, it's not the most, it's not the least, and I'm keeping 2.5 and I'm giving 2.5 commission, which isn't the standard anymore. Now it's keep 3, give 2, whatever. Don't try to heckle me for my commission at the beginning. Don't try to say, hey, Carly, could you give me a discount? Could you give me a discount? Let me do my job. Prove that I'm good at it. Prove to you that I'm going to get you your money. I want to get you more money. That's my job. Being a broker is a service. It is taxable.
Yes.
You must pay GST, QST on commission.
So it is 5%, 3%, 4%
plus
tax.
GST, QST. And just so you know, I don't keep the GST, QST. You can blame the government. They take it from me. You pay it and they take it. So it's not that I want to charge you GST, QST. It's that I have to. And it makes no difference whether I'm incorporated or not if I have to charge you GST, QST. Any broker who says, oh no, it's tax included, they're still paying tax on your commission. So they're not getting the full 5%, 3%.
4%. When should I sell?
When is the right time for you?
Literally.
The only time I would tell you don't sell your house for your own peace of mind.
Sanity.
Pardon?
December, January.
Not December, January, but don't sell your house between Christmas and New Year's.
Yeah.
Like, just don't do it. You know what? When you don't want people in your house is when you're not going to sell your house. If you have a home, a single family home, and you have the world's nicest backyard, don't sell your house in the middle of January. Sell it in the summer.
Or at least let us take photos.
Or take your own.
In the summer.
Or take your own.
Or take your own in the summer.
But I would say to you, go with the timing of the market and go with what works for you. But if you do have something specific to a season, I don't know, you live on the back of a ski mountain, try to sell your house to correspond with those things. You know, if you have a cottage that is only accessible in the summer, well, don't try to sell it in the winter.
No,
put
the odds in your favor.
Let the odds be in your favor.
Number 3, what's one thing people forget to take into consideration when selling? And that goes to the notary. So
yeah, and the GST-QST.
Yeah, and the GST-QST. So GST-QST on the commission and notary. So as a seller, you still have notary fees when you sell your property. So A is because you are closing out your mortgage. So there's a fee.
Hold on. To make that very clear, just because your balance on your mortgage is 0 does not mean it's been what we call radiated. A lot of people who have been in their house for 20 years will say, oh, well, I don't have a mortgage. My mortgage is paid. Okay, but you haven't gone to the notary. And why would you spend the extra money before you sell, unless you needed the credit, to go and close down that mortgage and remove the mortgage from your property? Because you have no risk if it's at 0. So remember, you have that radiation to pay for. That's the number one thing I think that people just doesn't click on their mind, or they don't remember that they haven't done it.
They're
so that's
shocked
one.
that they get a bill.
Yeah. So they pay for their radiation of their mortgage. They have to pay for the city, the notary to call the city, municipal and school taxes to prove that they're paid. Whether you can send them a paid bill or not, they still have to call and close your account. If there's anything municipal or bylaw, if there's anything with your certificate of location that they have to speak to a land surveyor about, those are all things that will be your
hours that are getting charged to you.
Correct. Then the other thing I think that people forget is that the notary is also charging you for disbursement if you have to disperse to anything else that's on your property and to pay you. So it shouldn't be the $1,500 if there's no mortgage that the buyer is paying. But don't expect the bill to be 0. And a notary is no different than a lawyer. Every time you pick up the phone and call them, or every time you send them an email, they're going to charge you. So if you have a lot of questions, don't be surprised if your bill is a little bit higher.
Last thing I want to mention is your certificate of location.
Yeah.
So if it's on anything older than 10 years, and I even saw a notary said to you the other day, it was under 10 years and they still wanted a new one. So I don't know why.
It's at the full discretion of the notary, but technically it's supposed to be 10 years or
less. It's still valid.
Unless the municipal bylaws have been modified in any way.
Or your property has been modified.
Correct.
So you put up a fence, you did a new balcony, you changed.
Not you.
Not you.
If you put up a fence, your neighbors put up fences, all of those things technically would have to be done. So the notary will ask you, don't lie to your notary, because your buyer will turn around and definitely say the truth because they've seen the property. Oh no, pas de cabano. I haven't built a structure. Oh no. You don't think the buyer is going to look at the certificate of location when they review it with the notary and say, there's a structure here. And you know what's more expensive than getting a certificate of location when I take your property for sale? Getting one rushed.
Title
it can
insurance.
be up to 3 times the price, and then you won't get it in time, and then you have to pay for title insurance. Title insurance is something that is becoming more and more popular. Whether your certificate of location is valid or not, if there's something wrong with your certificate of location, title insurance is being thrown at clients left, right, and center. A good notary will explain to you why you have to get it. It sounds irrational, but you have no choice.
To protect you.
And some of the banks will require it. So one of the things that came up in title insurance requirement recently for me was that the stairs of a property built in 1910 encroach on the city, okay? You think it's going to come up? Nope. Is the bank going to require it? Yes. Because anything that's considered a title defect has to be rectified to be sold. So is that exaggerated? I think so. But for under $1,000, are you going to hold up your sale? That's your choice. You can fight with the notary. You can fight with the land surveyor. But it's paid once throughout the time. You buy it for the person who is buying your house. And when they go to sell, they'll have to buy it for the next person. It is a Band-Aid, simply a Band-Aid. In the case of stairs that are on city property since 1902 or whatever it is, or 1910, that's okay. If it's because there's a defect in your house, the way in which the house was constructed and you did the construction, like you had one like that, where it was a newer construction and there was an issue with the construction, you can go and ask the city for an acquittance. It's not what that's called, but I'm going to use that word because it's easier. And say, hey, can you say it's okay in writing?
Just ask them to forgive you, basically.
Yeah. Don't do it and ask to be forgiven because that hardly works depending on your municipality. But if you can get them to give you a written paper that you can annex to your certificate of location, you're nipping the problem in the bud. If you're buying a house and you think you're going to be there for 10 years, let your seller buy you title insurance. But in those 10 years, work to get the problem solved. Will it cost you more than title insurance? Probably. But it's the right thing to do, and it's the right thing for the title. And a notary can tell you, in this case, I'm going to use title insurance, but I think it's better to correct the title. And I think that it's a give and take, depending on what it is. And, sometimes if it's easy, like moving a post or getting the city to say that the 3/4 of an inch of foundation is the wrong way, then get it done.
Do I buy before selling? What if I can't sell? It's all going to be within your timing and your financial capabilities.
Correct. In this market, don't buy before you sell if you think that you're going to be tight for cash.
Especially if you don't know what your financial situation is or what the market is, what's out there.
Well, that's the thing. And I think that's a conversation that you have with your financial institution, your banker, your investment advisor. Because it's not can you today, it's how far and how long can you carry two properties without being financially stripped. And also, some people can do it financially, but emotionally they can't take it. It's going to wear on you every day. And Michelle and I are going to do our damn hardest to sell that house if that's what you want to do. But what happens if you just can't? We never know. In the market that we're in right now, there are properties that are picture perfect. 7 months ago, there would have been 19 buyers for it, but it's not moving. Even if the price seems right for today's market, it's been lower than its neighbors or whatever it may be, and it's just not moving. We can't control. We don't have crystal balls. So if you're going to buy before selling, make sure you have plan A, B, and C. The only people right now who should buy without selling are people who are very cash rich and are buying new construction that's not going to be ready for a while. Like if you can give yourself a window of 12 months, go for it. Go buck wild.
Because you can give your delay on occupancy.
Correct. But are you really maximizing your own value that way? You're limiting your pool of people that are going to be willing to move later. You're going to be renting back the house probably from these people because if you need your liquidity. And now
it's a conversation to have at the very beginning with us
about what you can support.
Yeah.
What you can financially support, what you can emotionally support, and what makes the most sense.
And your financial advisor.
Some people are super stressed to have sold their house and don't know where to go. Other people are super stressed to hold two houses. Everyone is different. There's no answer for that.
But you just have to have a plan.
Or
try to have a plan.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks so much for tuning in today, guys. Next week's episode is going to be a little bit different than the last couple we've been doing. It's going to be a little all over the place. People have shot us random questions, and some of them are just not really real estate related, but it'll be a way to get to know us.
That's okay.
So tune in for next week. And as always, send us your questions and your concerns with real estate or other things.
Thank you.